If you haven't seen the Suicide Squad movie, then I'm gonna spoil it for you. Really, really bad. Hi everyone, welcome back to Comic Book Issues. It's time for another one of our vlogs, and I've just seen the Suicide Squad movie. Now, I've never been a huge Suicide Squad fan. I am a fan of John Ostrander's comic books, so I went back and reread the first volume of the classic 80s Suicide Squad, and I really liked it. I went into this movie with high hopes. This was probably the movie I was most looking forward to this summer, based on the trailers. The trailers were really strong. And that has me worried for Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman has had a really strong trailer. But frankly, the film itself was just so-so. It wasn't any worse than Batman v Superman, so at least there's that. At least DC is getting consistent with their films. There were some characters and some parts of the movie that were very well written, and there are others that were just kind of lazy. And that's the problem so far with the DC Cinematic Universe. They're just taking shortcuts. They're not giving you the full story on these characters, the full arcs that you need to get invested in them. Let's start with the opening introductions of the various Suicide Squad members. That took a while to get through, but it was also kind of necessary. Maybe they could have spread those throughout the movie as each one kind of took a turn in the limelight. But at least those gave you the character's backstory right up front, and we got to know them a little bit. We see that, Harley's crazy, Deadshot loves his daughter, Croc's a monster, Boomerang's a jerk, That's kind of the problem I was mentioning. Some characters get a lot of story and background, others get the short and the straw, and we're just left filling these kind of very broad archetypes. I was really hoping for a funny, quirky movie. We haven't really had too many funny superhero films, maybe Ant-Man, but this wasn't that film. Unfortunately, most of the quirky, funny stuff got put in the trailers. I'd say about 90% of the funny stuff got put into the trailer, so there weren't that many surprise moments where you're laughing, which I would have liked a few more of. There were one or two. Visually, it was very impressive. I enjoyed the look of the Enchantress, her brother, and the demons and stuff. I mean, the special effects were great. I can't argue that. Let's start out with the breakout character of this film, Harley Quinn. Harley was well written, I'll give her that. They really portrayed an early Harley Quinn. It's not the Harley Quinn we currently have in DC's comic by Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, where she's a little more balanced and trying to do the right thing but the wrong way. This is the very early Joker neophyte Harley Quinn, who is very dangerous and very crazy. There are scenes where she murders guards, and they needed to have that in there. We need to have this early Harley, if they ever want to go to the later Harley. And maybe they don't want to do that. It's different from the comics, I do kind of wish in the opening prologues with the Joker that we'd seen her struggling a bit with it more. I mean, it seemed like she was instantly under a spell. I wish they'd given us a scene or two where we see him start the seduction and she's, no, this isn't right, but yet I would have liked to see a little more moral struggle at the beginning with Harley. See the sane woman she was. Was she ever sane? Maybe. And then we can have the lunatic killing clown girl. I said several times I'm not sure Margot Robbie was the right body type for this film because, Harley's a very small, sleek gymnast. Margot's a very voluptuous woman, but, she put a lot into the performance. I'll give her that, but certain things didn't work, like the accent. What was the deal with that? Half the time she had an accent, "You're my friend too," and then there were the times where she was talking normal and had no accent. "You own that shit." Come on. Pick one or the other. I'm glad they didn't do the Bugs Bunny kind of comical, put in, accent from the cartoons, because that's kind of like an old-fashioned Hollywood voice that you don't really hear too much anymore, and it wouldn't make sense in a modern-day DC Cinematic Universe, but still, it's like Margot Robbie half the time had this awful accent, the other half the time didn't have it. It's like, choose one or the other. You either do have the accent or you don't. Commit to the part. That was probably my biggest problem with Harley Quinn. That lack of consistency with Harley really bothered me. Deadshot, played by Will Smith, probably had the best character arc, if not the only character arc in the story, where he goes from being a selfish killer to, the guy who loves his daughter, and then finally kind of sees maybe, just maybe, there's this slim chance for redemption, and he can be a good father in her eyes. He's never going to be a hero, but maybe he can be the guy who does good once in a while. Maybe he can be someone his daughter is proud of, and that's really his motivating factor. So Will Smith, his character actually had a story arc. No surprise there, he was the biggest star name in the movie. The one scene that kind of confused me was when he found out that they were being manipulated. I mean, he was a con sent out to kill people on a suicide run. Did he think they were going to play fair with him? I mean, he got really mad when he found out they were cleaning up Waller's mess, and I'm not really sure why. Why would he have even cared? Let's talk about the Joker, played by Jared Leto. It was a good performance, I guess, but honestly, he's barely in it. And that is a mistake when it comes to the Joker. The Joker is a star character, not a bit player. My thought, you should either have confined him to Harley's flashbacks or given him a much bigger role in the movie. Because as it was, the part wasn't small enough or it wasn't big enough. It was just there enough that it raised more questions than it answered, you know? I kind of would have liked it if he'd just been in the flashbacks, then they go to the credits, and then they do the scene of Harley being broken out of jail by him, takes off the mask, let's go home. Cut Jared Leto as the Joker. You know, that should have been the mid-credits sequence, rather than the Bruce Wayne Amanda Waller thing, but I'll get to that later. It left a lot of holes in the story, you know? He finds that one guard and forces him to give Harley a phone, and she says he's dead meat, but then we never see that guard again. There's a long history in cinema of prison guards and orderlies and the like of being horrible and then getting screwed over. You know, the orderly who licks Linda Hamilton in T2. The orderly in Kill Bill, Clancy Brown in The Shawshank Redemption. You know, you gotta see these bad guys get their comeuppance, and we never saw that with that guy, and I felt that got cut out. There's that scene where the Joker breaks into this lab and forces the guy to open up, and then he injects him with something. And there was no payoff for that. What the hell? That scene had no business being in the movie. I had no problem with Jared's look or his performance. I thought he did a fine job. I understand why you have to have the Joker if you're going to do Harley's origin, but it just seemed like a waste of a good character. He should have probably premiered here in a cameo and then gone on to the Batman movie Affleck's writing. Other than that, honestly, the only thing that kind of threw me was this seems like a Joker who actually wants Harley around, who needs her, and that's never been the Joker. But again, it's a different interpretation for the DC Cinematic Universe, so I'll let that ride, and let's see where they go with that. I will give a tip of the hat to the writers and Viola Davis for the character of Amanda Waller, because they played her perfectly. This was the Amanda Waller we've known from the 80s. This isn't the thin, skinny supermodel that they reintroduced in the DCNU. This is the older, cannier woman who's been in politics for a while and is the grand manipulator. She's got ice water in her veins. The best scene for Amanda Waller was when they're rescuing her, and she just pulls out that gun and shoots all her people. That is Amanda Waller to a T. She was never going to rescue them. She used them, and once they had no use, she had to cover up her mistake, and so bang, 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 bang. Again, story-wise, my big issue was how the hell did she survive the helicopter crash? We see her underwater with that thing in her brain from the Enchantress, so that explains how the Enchantress got all that knowledge, but was the Enchantress keeping her alive? And when the Enchantress died, how did she get out of the water without drowning if she was alive? You know, there were a lot of questions at the end. There were logic questions in this movie, a lot of logic that didn't add up. The story was okay, but the logic didn't always work. But very good performance by Viola Davis. Another good character was El Diablo, played by Jay Hernandez, who he had an arc. But we kind of caught him in the middle of it and then had to have the flashback to explain how it started. And that was okay. And I wish they'd done a little more with him. A lot of time he's just standing around in the background until he has his big hero moment at the end. And I like that whole transformation to like the Mexican fire god. That was kind of cool. And like he maybe had this magic character inside him the whole time, the Enchantress implied. He represented the archetype that I see in the Suicide comics all the time of the character who genuinely wants redemption. Others are lifers, they know they're never getting out. Others are just there as one-offs and then get released, at least in the 80s comic. This is like the guy, if I do this, then it'll all work out for me. He's the one with hope. Did his wife just not mind the tattoos on his face? Did she really not get that he was a gangbanger? She seemed surprised when there were guns and drugs and money in the house. And your husband has a skull tattooed on his face. He emits fire from his hands. Did you really not know that he was up to no good? Another thing that logic-wise didn't really work for me is how quickly he bonded with the squad. I mean, they didn't even seem to like him. They never really talked to him. They're constantly calling him a coward for not fighting. But then at the end, you're not going to take I've got another family. You're not going to take them. Like, what? They're not your family. You met them 2 hours ago in a prison yard. Also, killing his kids, that's what gets Harley's goat? That's what sets her off? You know, the whole, you own that. okay, you've done lots of horrible things and killed lots of people, but that's your limit. Burning children to death. Good to know. Okay. Slipknot, played by Adam Beach. Oh, so that's what happened to Chester Lake. No, I'm kidding. Yes, he was my biggest issue with the movie. He was the biggest mistake in the movie. You knew from the trailers he was going to get it right away. There's always the one Suicide Squad member who runs, and they kill him to show they're serious. They did that on The Flash. This was that character. And the mistake was not in killing him. The mistake was in how they introduced him. They've got his face up on the screen as part of the squad, but he didn't get an introduction movie. They're talking about how dangerous these people are, and then they have him in the yard, and then they just drive him in a car and let him out. It's like this guy had no introduction. It's being down on the planet, and there's an extra guy in there in a red shirt. You know, he's not going to make it. And you know he's not going to make it because we have no idea who the hell he is. So they just introduced this guy with some guns and a grappling hook, and then they killed him. And he should have been in there from the start. He should have had an opening movie. He should have been in the prison. We should have been following him from the start of the movie, because then his death would have meant something. It was just cheap shock value. Captain Boomerang, played by Jay Courtney, was a huge disappointment. I was really rooting for him to be the breakout character in this film, but he is just a lot of jokes that fall flat. The one thing I liked, the one thing they kept out of the trailers, was the scene where Flag says, "You're all free to go," and he instantly leaves the bar. And then he comes back, and nobody says anything about it. He should have said, "Well, I realized I couldn't get the hell out of here. There ain't no planes or cars at work. I'm stuck." No reason. He's just back. He decides to fight. And that's not Boomerang. Boomerang is the biggest coward in the comic books. And, okay, yes, I've said this isn't the comics, but what the hell was the deal with the pink unicorn? It's okay to give a guy an affectation, but explain it. Have him talk to it like he's nuts. Have a flashback where it was his only friend when his dad used to beat him. Something, Just, there was no reason for it. There was no logic or reason behind Boomerang. He's one of those characters I mentioned who got the short end of the stick when it came to writing. Speaking of did not get enough screen time or writing, Killer Croc, played by Mr. Echo. I'm gonna read this off. I cannot pronounce this. Played by Adewale Akinwumi Agabaje, and I apologize because I know I didn't get that last one right. But he was a walking special effect. It was decent makeup. He looked good. Again, this movie looked good. But there was no, point to this character. They wanted a monster in the squad, and they couldn't do King Shark, so they settled for Killer Croc, but it was just a makeup job, and I'm not even sure they needed such a good actor to do it, because he is a really good actor. I loved him on Lost. Rick Flag, played by Joel Kinnaman. I'm going to say that I think Joel Kinnaman and Clara Delevingne were the breakout actors in this movie. I thought they did a really good job with their characters. I really believe that Flag and June were in love. Again, the big logic problem for me was that scene where Amanda Waller shoots all those people and Flag just kind of shrugs it off. As much as that scene made Waller, it hurt Flag as the good guy, as the patriot, as the soul of the team. I could get where he was in a difficult spot hiding what the Enchantress was doing because he wanted to protect June from Amanda and from any repercussions because he was in love with her. I liked that he was being manipulated by Waller as much as any of the inmates were. And I thought, he was a fairly good actor and did a good job with the part, I believed the love story. I believed that he was this kind of patriot who was kind of disgusted by the idea of the squad. And you kind of see this slow building of respect, especially for Deadshot. So I thought Joel Kinnaman did a really good job. The Enchantress, as played by, again, Clara Delevingne, was probably my favorite part of the film. I thought when she was playing Dr. Moon, she did a good job of being really horrified that there's this kind of demon inside her, this monster that takes over her. And you could see the effect it had on her and how she was desperate to kind of be saved. And then she did a really good job. I preferred the Enchantress with the long hair than when she kind of cleaned up and had the moon symbol on top. That one was very creepy, and they used the CGI well enough there to kind of make her this kind of dark, shifty, feral spirit. And if you're being this, 1,000-year-old spirit, you're not going to be wearing a witch's top hat and a low-cut blouse like in the 80s comic. You're going to be this kind of tribal tattooed, gray-skinned monster thing. So I did think the costume worked for the character as they played it. Was anyone else reminded of the girl dog from Full Metal Alchemist? When she was hunched down, you could see the kind of glowing eyes in the light, in the moonlight. She was nicely creepy. Never scary, but, off in a way that I think worked for the character. Again, logic problem, I had no idea what the hell that spell was doing. She was going to take over the world with the spell, I got that much. It never explained how. Was everyone going to become one of those big eye creature fungus monsters? I like this character being so powerful and Waller thinking she can manipulate it and control it like she does everyone else with her leverage, but then it just doesn't work. And they have to clean up the mess that Waller creates. I think that worked for the story, for the arc of the Squad. Alan Shanae is the brother, or the Incubus character. They never really gave him a name. Again, just pretty much a walking special effect, but impressive. My big question about him was, why did he need to be her brother? I guess it was for the sharing a heart thing, so that when he died they could defeat her. But really, did we even need to know he was her brother? It's always lazy writing when you've got somebody who calls your character brother, because nobody in real life calls her brother. You'd say, Alan, David, Francine, my brother. You don't go around calling someone brother all the time. That's just lazy writing to let the audience know that the character is the other character's brother, Katana, played by Karen Fukuhara, was another character who got the short end of the stick. Here's Rick Flag. I don't like metahumans, but here's my bodyguard. She's a metahuman. And her husband's dead. And her husband's soul is contained in the magic sword she wields, so she talks to it. Yeah, shouldn't she be telling us this? Shouldn't we be seeing this in a backstory? She kills some gangsters, cries at a sword, but otherwise she's just another there to look impressive character, like Croc. As one of the good guys on the Squad, I wish they'd done more with her. Maybe show how she hooked up with Rick Flag. Why was she working with the United States government? We have no idea. They gave away that Batman was going to be in it a while ago, but I kind of wish they'd kept to like a stunt double or something and not actually had Affleck show up, because that kind of deflated the surprise at the mid-credits scene. It's like, we've already seen him twice in two different scenes. Now he shows up having dinner with Amanda Waller, and more Justice League build-up. Okay, fine, but didn't we do enough of that in Batman v Superman? As I said, the end credit scene should have been Joker breaking out Harley. Ezra Miller showing up as the Flash was a nice surprise. I did not expect that, so okay, thank you. But I felt he should have dodged some boomerangs. This is no big improvement on Batman v Superman, but it didn't slip backwards. It hasn't gotten any worse. It hasn't gone back to Man of Steel levels of incompetence. So they're holding steady. Hopefully they keep going up, or at least it doesn't go back down for Justice League. Hopefully Wonder Woman's good. I really hope Wonder Woman's good. That needs to be the first really great DC movie. Just so we can have a female-led superhero film. Overall, this film is okay. I had a decent time. I think you'll have a decent time if you go see it, but you're not going to be talking about it for weeks later, like with some films. I'd be interested to see what's on the deleted scenes when the DVD comes out. But I'm not sure I need to own the DVD. It's one of those films. I'm not sure when we're back. I suppose it's Wonder Woman or Doctor Strange that winter. We'll see. If not winter, then I'll be back at summer. Here's to Wonder Woman. Here's to Doctor Strange. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I don't know what Thor. Armageddon's coming up. So I'll see you next time for a vlog here at Comic Book Issues. I'm your host, The Last Angry Geek.